complete ourselves, and then save for the parts.
Hey YouTube, Rant here. I wanted to talk to you guys today about Dark World, just about how the different variances that the deck has, and all the different ways that the deck can be played. And one of the first points I wanted to hit on was Tour Guide. Now we all know that Tour Guide allows for instant rank 3 exceeds, most notably Zen Mains is what is summoned mostly off Tour Guide. But the deck doesn't really need Tour Guide because Tour Guide itself doesn't bring any plays to the deck that doesn't take to any other deck, most notably like plants and windups, I guess. But it brings the ability to special summon Brown and bounce for Grapha, which is a good play, but it still leaves the random Tour Guide on your field. But you know, I don't know, that's just however you want to look at that play. I honestly think that the deck doesn't really need Tour Guide. If I had Tour Guide, I'm not entirely sure that I would want to play it, just because I don't have any room in my variation. I would have to cut Skill Drain, and I would probably end up side decking Raven just in case I ran into a mirror match, because the mirror ends up being whoever can just discard Grapha first and go off. But that was one of the main things, like the different variations, because you can play Tour Guide Dark World, and then you can play without Tour Guide. And even though even though Dark World hasn't won any jumps or it's topped a couple, and it almost topped KC, but both of the guys got disqualified for stupid things. But there have been a couple builds that I've seen that have done decent that are Tour Guideless. One of them ran really weird things, though, like Braun and Silva, which isn't really too weird if you think about it, but it definitely was more of a attempt to control Dark World, which is more of a game 2 thing to me. The good thing about non-Tour Guide Dark World is you get to play Skill Drain. Now, Skill Drain wrecks a decent majority of the meta, plants, windups, and vectors and all that stuff. They really have trouble dealing with Skill Drain. So it's a definite plus that you can play 2 Skill Drains, and only, to see in my version of Dark World, I'm only running one effect monster, that being Raven, and you're obviously not going to summon Raven all the time, and you're not going to summon Raven under Skill Drain. Because usually you summon Raven, and then you discard several cards, and then you don't use Raven anymore. It usually dies or something. And it's still, I want to say, 16 under Gates, which is okay, but not, like, it's not one of the key cards. It just helps you accelerate a lot faster and go off. It's better late game because you can loop Beige and special summon like 3 Graphas if you have them engraved. Just keep doing that, and then you have a bunch of, then you can basically OTK. But that's one of the benefits to not running Tour Guide. And also, Tour Guide is very bad with drag down into the grave, just because you can't, like, as soon as you drag, if you have Tour Guide, then they're immediately gonna, rip the Tour Guide out of your hand, so it makes drag down a lot less effective, and in non-Tour Guide Dark World, it doesn't really matter as much. So, I don't know. I almost think non-Tour Guide Dark World is a little bit better, and I know people are gonna argue with me on that fact, because I've heard several larger name YouTubers talk about how Tour Guide is like entirely necessary in Dark World, and I don't think it is, really. Because game 2, like game 1, it allows you basically to just, Tour Guide's only going to bring you the Zen play, and which just allows you to stall until you get to your power cards. The variation that I built, and not to say that my variation is like the best, because I'm fairly certain it's not, but you draw into your power cards faster anyways, so not having Tour Guide is completely a non-factor. And then games 2 and 3, you side into Spirit Reapers and all these other control cards to slow down the game state, which allows you to actually have better control, and not having Tour Guide still does not matter. So I still don't think Tour Guide is a huge factor in the deck. I really think the only thing that Tour Guide is necessary in this format, the only decks that need it are clearly Plant Synchro, or plants, wind-ups, and that's pretty much like the only decks that really need Tour Guide. Agents don't even need Tour Guide. Pure Agents seems to be the better deck as opposed to Tour Guide Agents, because Tour Guide itself is only good for rank 3 exceeds, which is amazing that it's a 1-card exceed. It's $150 for a reason, don't get me wrong, but it's not like a necessary thing, except in plants, just because they play a bunch of other good cards. Why not play Tour Guide? So that was like a little mini Tour Guide rant, but I think that Dark World is definitely still a viable. It's not. I don't see, like, when you tier decks, when you say something is tier 1, it usually has to be generally accepted as a tier 1 thing, and I think the only clear tier 1 decks right now are plants, obviously, Dino Rabbit, because that deck is retarded. That is Samurai 2.0 for this format. And, which I completely forgot to mention, Dino Rabbit. That deck is just insane. Any deck that can make, like, Levier, Logia, Dolk at one turn is too much. But anyways, besides the point, that deck needs to go, and the ban list hits in like a week or however far it is. The ban list is so close. I'm very excited. I hope good things happen. Of course, Konami's gonna screw us, I know, but it is what it is. With our luck, D-Mox can get unbanned, because if you did not know, Dark Magician of Chaos just got reprinted in Japan, so there's a slight chance it's coming off the list. Don't quote me on that, but I would pick one up, just saying. And, yeah, I completely lost my train of thought. But Dark World is definitely a good sleeper deck, I want to say, because, like, it's one of those non-tier 1 good decks, because clearly tier 1, like I said, was plants, dinos, and agents. I think agents are definitely a good tier 1 pick. We haven't had a YCS yet, so we can't determine whether wind-ups and Inzectors are tier 1 as of yet. I get the feeling of the two decks, it's like really hard because wind-ups, the most popular wind-up builds right now are the wind-up loop builds, and people are trying to say that they don't lose to Maxi and Veiler, but I'm sorry, but if I Veiler your Zen Mighty, you're just mad. That's all that is. Or if I Veiler your Hunter, or whatever I'm supposed to stop. I don't know. Like I said, I haven't looked into the deck enough. I'm definitely need to do some research, but and you definitely lose to Maxi. I don't know who said you don't, but you're not gonna play around Maxi. If I have the Maxi and you continue to go, you're lucky if I don't draw into something, because I'm going to draw like a ton of cards, because you're going to keep discarding and I'm going to keep drawing, so that's a thing. And I just feel like the deck, because no one is expecting the deck, because I know I've sided for Dark World like the past 2 regionals I've gone to, and I also sided for it. I've been going to a new local, and I sided for it there too, and there's one guy that plays it, so I've only, out of the several times I've sided for Dark World in an event, I've played it one time, and it sacked me, which made me really interested to take a look at the deck, because I built it and I took it apart the first day because I didn't like it. Taking a look at the deck again, it's a very good choice. Just because of all the, like, you think wind-ups are really bad about hand control or completely depleting your hand. Dark World might not do it on the insane level that windups do it, but between dealings and drag and card destruction, like, we're controlling your hand, basically. So, I mean, the deck definitely plays like the hand control aspect. I mean, it's just going to outpace you. Because eventually, I've yet to play a game where if I got 3 graphics engraved, I couldn't get them on the field. And then proceed to just, push for game. And then, like I said, game 2, you're going to side into a very control-oriented version of the deck. You're going to side in Reapers and Dimensional Prisons, depending on the matchup. Black Horn of Heaven, things like that. So it's definitely, I think it's definitely a good meta pick. I would like to see it. I feel like it's going to top ATL. At least one is going to top 32. I can feel it. And with my luck, it's going to be a tour guide version, but I mean, you don't need tour guide. I don't have tour guides. I could probably get them, like, not lying at all. I could get tour guides, but like I don't really have like a want for them. I don't want to play anything that has. I don't want to play plans, just because I feel like the ban list is gonna hit plants just because of their insane amounts of success. If you don't think the ban list is gonna do a little bit of something to plants, then I don't know where you've been. And it may not be drastic, like they could do something completely crazy and like ban Dandy and Bulb and stuff, which we all know is not going to happen. But that would just be really bad for the game anyways, because plants, any format where plants is an undisputed best deck is a good format. So, I don't know if I really talked about anything that was mainly about Dark World. This was just like a mini rant discussion type video. But anyways, I feel the Dark World is really good. It has a good matchup. The only thing really that you're gonna lose to, like game 1, it has a decent game 1 matchup. I took out Dark Smog just to help mitigate game 1, like really bad game 1s, because Dark Smog game 1 isn't going to do very much for you against Agents, which is a popular deck still. Dino Rabbit, which definitely is a popular deck. They do not care if you remove anything because they're just going to leviate you to death, and that's pretty much it. Also, Dark Smog, it's a really good in plant matchup, but you side so much plant hate. You side so much plant hate, it doesn't matter anyways. If you don't take game 1, which, don't be surprised if you don't win your game 1 against plants. It's not really surprising, but game 2 you should definitely win. Game 2 and game 3 you have a significantly nicer chance of winning, because you're going to side in Smog, and then you're going to side in your like Dimensional Prisons, things like that. You can take out, I would probably side out 1 Skill Drain, to be honest. I draw into Skill Drain a whole lot, just because of how fast my deck is. Just because you play the 3 Reckless, 3 Upstarts, 3 Dealings, 3 Drag, and your Gates, which also gives you cards every turn, and Browse. You play so many draw cards, you draw into Skill Drain. Like, I usually have 1 on the field and 1 in hand, so you can usually side 1 out. But the deck sides really well for all the matchups. So that's my feelings on Dark World. I think it's a really good deck, and I think if you haven't tried Dark World, definitely go pick up the deck and play it, and you'll see how good it is. Just because even if you don't have like a Raven, because Raven is, for some reason, I mean, it's still expensive. The deck isn't seeing hardly any play on like the competitive level. I haven't seen too many tops or anything out of it, but it's still, decent. I would still, if you can't get Raven, you can test the deck without Raven. Just main deck a Spirit Reaper, and you'll be really happy with it, I promise you. And you also don't have to main Dark Smog. I'm not maining anymore. I put Torrential in over Dark Smog, and I sided my Dark Smog for the plant matchup, because that's about all you're going to side it in for anyways. So, and the mirror match, it's really good mirror match too, because you can Smog remove their Grappa, so that's a good thing. But yeah, that's basically my feelings on Dark World. If anyone, wants to talk to me about Dark World or anything, or just anything in general, message me, leave me a comment, whatever. And until next time, I'll see you guys.